Welcome everyone to this reading part 4, Understanding Viewpoints Analysis. Now I'm just here in the reading part 4 section of the CELPIP library. And before we get started, I do want to let you know about reading part 4. First, this part 4 is for higher level students, students that want to get 7, 8, 9 or higher. This is the part that you need to do very well on, okay? And so we do have this really excellent reading part 4 tips and strategies video, okay? And that video will give you a more detailed analysis of how you can prepare for part 4, what tips you can use for reading and for comprehending, what information you should be gathering, and some strategies that you can use to answer part 4 more effectively. Very useful video, and I will leave a link in the description box to that video. Okay? And so today we are going to be doing a sample from volume 6, Population Growth. So let's get started. Now everyone, I am going to be utilizing some of those tips and strategies in that guide. And well, here we have our reading on the left and our questions on the right, very similar to the way that the exam format is, okay? Now, I will be reading and analyzing the information, and I will be reading the questions and analyzing the information. But I will be giving you a chance to answer the question yourself before I explain it, okay? So follow along, everybody. I will be also explaining some vocabulary, which will be very useful for you, okay? And let's see how you do. Let's do it together. That's what this video will be for, okay? We can analyze together and we can understand information together. All right, so let's get started. I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see more clearly, okay? Advances in sanitation, medical technology, and agricultural productivity have allowed population growth to reach unprecedented peaks since the 1950s. So unprecedented, such unexpected, high results or the highest levels, okay? So yes, population growth has increased here according to sanitation, right? Sanitation, because nowadays most countries are very clean and we don't have so much disease, right? Of course, medical technology and agricultural productivity, we have more food production. So this is some of the reasons why the population has grown to these high levels, okay? According to a study by demographist Farsi, the world population, which stood at approximately 3 billion in 1959, is expected to reach 7.7 billion in 2020. It already has reached that. We're at 2025 before peaking at between 9 to 11 billion people by 2050. Wow. That's crazy that it's going to reach more than 10 billion. Wow. Such rapid population expansion or growth is raising fears that the number of humans could be more than the carrying capacity of the planet, what we are able to sustain, leading to a rapid depletion, reduction of non-renewable resources and an escalation increase in the amount of war, famine, and environmental degradation or damage. Okay. Non-renewable resources. So these are more natural resources, resources that we can't renew or keep maintaining, okay, such as oil, natural gas, okay? We can't renew those. We're just going to use them up. So Farsi then here is talking about population growth and some of the negative consequences that can happen because of population growth. Okay? All right. So our topic, population growth. All right. Farsi is the only opinion we have right now. Let's look at the questions just to get ready for them. Which paragraph provides the most pessimistic or negative view of population growth? Well, we didn't read the other paragraph, so unfortunately we can't answer that one yet. Who views population control as futile? So population control. So futile. Futile means ineffective. It will not work. Population control will not work. That's futile. Ineffective. Okay? The environmentalist, the demographist, the researcher, the professor. So we didn't read these all, but I can see here, well, the demographist would be Farsi. Okay? Now, he doesn't talk about population control in this paragraph, so we don't know yet. Wong would strongly disagree with Gupta that we didn't read about Wong or Gupta yet, and strongly disagree. Maxwell and Wong both claim that. What does Maxwell mean by the elephants in the room? Wow. The elephants in the room. We're going to read about that one later. So, well, we couldn't answer anything yet. That's how it is. But we do know about Farsi's opinion. Farsi is mainly saying that the population is growing rapidly. Okay? And there are some negative consequences that are related to that. So let's continue reading. World population is already above sustainable levels. Sustainable levels, like we can't keep it or sustain it or maintain it. Overpopulation is having a visible impact on water quality, air pollution, deforestation, biodiversity, desertification, and much more, stated Sujoy Gupta, a researcher with the Northern Nature Foundation. Okay, so Gupta says we already are at some levels where we cannot sustain the population. Deforestation, disappearing forests. Biodiversity, well, biodiversity is all the living organisms in an ecological system. The biodiversity, flora, plants, and fauna, animals, living organisms. Okay, desertification means the land is becoming like deserts. Okay, so Gupta is saying that overpopulation is having a negative effect already. We have to implement, start, produce population control methods such as family planning and tax measures to limit to control population growth before it becomes a catastrophe, he claimed. So Gupta's view, it's pretty negative, okay? Gupta says he is a researcher. He claims that we already seen some negative population growth effects, particularly in the environmental area. Okay? Now, I don't think we can answer any questions yet. We do know that he has a negative view, much more negative than Farsi, that's for sure. Now, population control, well, he sees it as positive because he says we have to introduce population measures. So I don't think number two, it's not the researcher. He's a researcher, it says here. Researcher, a researcher. Already, I don't think it's the demographist, Farsi, or the researcher. So A or D probably. Wong, we're going to read about Wong now. Not everyone is alarmed, okay? We have to take note of these expressions. Not alarmed. Kelly Wong is not alarmed about population growth. A demography professor, okay, so professor, this is the professor, at Athabasca University, argues that population growth is leveling off, stabilizing. Leveling off means stabilizing on its own accord, in its own way. As people move to the city, children come to be seen as an economic burden problem that hinders, stops, blocks, controls material success and the birth rate consequently tends to fall off naturally. Okay, so it says when people move to cities, they see that children can cause economic problems and they don't have children. Could be true. I do see this in Canada for sure, in general. I wouldn't say that it's an economic burden. Maybe not in Canada, but maybe in some countries. Okay? She also claims that the issues of war, famine, and environmental degradation are not brought about by overpopulation, but rather are facts of life that have been with us from time immemorial. So, immemorial since memory, since the time we can remember. Okay? All right. According to what I'm seeing here, Wong is not concerned about population growth and tends to see it as something that will organically or naturally decline or stabilize through time. And also, she claims that environmental degradation is not caused by overpopulation and that it's always been here. So, Wong doesn't really believe in environmental degradation caused by overpopulation or human activity, which Gupta did. Now, Wong strongly disagrees with Gupta that we should have that answer now. Environmental damage is caused by human activity. Famine results from not producing sufficient food. Family planning is essential for economic growth. Ecological deterioration correlates with population growth. Well, we have the answer. We read both Gupta and Wong. So what do you think? Well, it's not B for sure. I saw here that Wong talked about famine, but it wasn't related to food production. And I didn't see Gupta talk that much about food production either. It talked about unsustainable levels. I don't really see, I see here a lot of focus on environment. And here, environmental degradation are not brought about by overpopulation. So, also, I can tell you that it's not C. Family planning is essential for economic growth. Now, Gupta talked about family planning, but she didn't talk, or he didn't talk about it in relation to economic growth. He talked about it in relation to population control. And Wong talked about it in terms of economic growth, but Wong didn't mention family planning. Wong mentioned that people don't want to have children when they move to cities. Okay? So, not related there. So, A, environmental damage is caused by human activity. D, ecological deterioration correlates with population growth. It's D. Now, let's understand these two answers clearly. Now, ecological is the same as environmental, and deterioration is the same as damage. Now, correlates with means there's a connection. There's a connection. So, this answer means the same. Environmental damage connects with population growth. And this one, the only difference with this one is in here, it says human activity, not population growth. Okay? So that is key because that's where they differ. Because according to Gupta, overpopulation is already having an impact on environmental damage. But according to Wong, says that environmental degradation are not caused by overpopulation. There you go. Now, Wong doesn't say that environmental degradation is also damage or deterioration. Now, maybe Wong thinks that human activity causes environmental damage, but not overpopulation. So that's the key. That's where there was answers between A and D. That was the difference. Okay. So that's where Wong disagrees with Gupta. Okay. That there's that connection between environmental damage and overpopulation, not human activity. Okay. All right. Can we answer anything else? No, haven't read about Maxwell. We haven't read about Maxwell. We didn't completely get this one. Okay, we didn't read about paragraph 3 or 4. Let's go on to the next one. Others are even more drastic in their attitude towards overpopulation, so more strongly against or in favor. I don't worry about overpopulation anymore, so doesn't worry about it, indicated Lucinda Maxwell, an environmental activist based in Halifax. Wow, she's an environmental activist or advocate or supporter, but she doesn't worry about overpopulation. Very interesting. Population growth is slowing. Okay, so she says it's slowing, but per capita or per person, consumption has skyrocketed, greatly increased. So, overpopulation, what I see here is she says she doesn't worry about it, but population growth, because it's slowing, but per capita consumption, this means how much people consume, how much is consumed per person. That's what it means per capita consumption. Most of the extra consumption is happening in rich countries that have long since stopped seeing substantial or great population growth. So she says that countries which consume the most, rich countries, they don't have population control, or sorry, population growth. Maybe Japan, maybe Canada, other European countries, but they consume so much. It's not enough to control population growth unless we change our consumption habits. We'll eventually witness resource shortages and a degradation of living conditions across the planet. So there you go. She says, so this is the reason why she doesn't worry about population growth. She says, it's not about population control or population growth, because even if we have the current population, we need to change our consumption habits. So it's about consumption, because if we keep on consuming the way we do, we will have resource shortages. Okay. Interesting. Consumption and inequality are really the elephants in the room when we are talking about overpopulation. Okay, so there we have that, the elephants in the room. So, very interesting phrase. It's an expression, a very good expression to use in your speaking and writing. We'll try to use that in our next speaking and writings. How about that? So, this question connects with number 5. What does Maxwell mean by the elephants in the room? Before we analyze that elephants in the room quote, let's look at these answers. The size of the population has grown to unsustainable levels. So, unsustainable has grown to unsustainable levels. There are much larger issues that are being overlooked. Consumption is much greater in some nations than others. Okay, much greater than others. Inequality has led to higher consumption levels by bigger nations. All right. Well, I can see some words that connect to the elephants, right? Well, what do you think? Well, firstly, let me tell you that it's not A for sure. It's not A. I hope you were able to not choose that one. The reason, very clear, that it's not A, it's because Maxwell is not worried about population growth, right? She said right here, I don't worry about overpopulation anymore. So when she says here about the elephants in the room, or when we are talking about overpopulation, it can't be that she thinks population has grown to unsustainable levels, because she's not worried about population growth, okay? So not A. So B, C, D. I'm going to say also that it's not D. Inequality has led to higher consumption levels by bigger nations. And the reason why it's not D is because she doesn't really focus on inequality in the countries. She does mention inequality in the end, but she didn't really mention that how that inequality affects or why richer or bigger nations are higher or they cause inequality. Okay? So inequality has led to higher consumption. We don't know that. We don't know by bigger nations. She did say that bigger or richer nations. Bigger here might not also be the right word. She meant richer, but maybe that's another reason why D is wrong. Okay? So then it's not D for that reason. So B or C? Okay, it's B. B is the answer. So there are much larger issues or elephants, much larger issues. The elephants, because an elephant is such a big animal, right? That are being overlooked, not considered. We are not focusing on them, ignoring. And they are in the room. We're in the room. We're having a meeting. We're discussing the issues. There's this huge issue in the room, but we don't see it. We don't see it. Or we're not focusing on it. And that's what is meant by the elephants in the room. We are ignoring the real big issues. That's what it means, this expression. And so, she said, consumption and inequality. Those are really the big issues when we are talking about overpopulation. Or Consumption and inequality are huge issues that we are ignoring when we are talking about overpopulation. Okay, so that's what the expression the elephants in the room means. There's these huge issues which we should be discussing at the board meeting, but we are ignoring them. Okay? Very interesting. I hope you were able to get that. Now, another way is there are much larger issues to consumption and inequality. Now, C focuses only on consumption, not really inequality. And also, it's true, greater in some nations than others, but it doesn't really mention about overlooked here. That's why it's not C. Okay, very interesting. Okay, so we read everything. We got 5. What about 4? Maxwell and Wong both claim that. So we read about Wong, we read about Maxwell. Population growth has declined because of overconsumption. Declined because of overconsumption. Ulterior socioeconomic factors are relevant to population growth. Ulterior socioeconomic factors. Irrelevant. Social issues have led to a declining population in most countries. And social issues have led to. Overpopulation has been caused by the lack of control policies. Overpopulation has been caused by the lack of control policies. Okay. So what do you think? Well, definitely not C. Both of them didn't really talk about what is causing overpopulation. Okay? Both of them didn't say. Again, Wong says she is not alarmed by overpopulation, but she didn't say what's causing it. Also, here, I don't worry about overpopulation, but not what's causing it. So, not D. Okay? Okay, what's next? ABC. It's also not A. It's also not A. Now, Wong didn't really talk about consumption levels at all. It was more Maxwell that talked about overconsumption in some countries, okay? She mentioned that. And also, both of them didn't really talk about population growth. Well, they did actually, sorry. They did talk about population growth has declined, but Wong is saying because population is declining because people are moving to cities, okay? Right here. Oh, no, sorry, that's as people move to cities, the population will decline, okay? And over here, Maxwell said population growth is slowing, but per capita consumption has skyrocketed. So it doesn't really say it's because of overconsumption. Or it might be, but not Wong, because they both claim that. So, B or C? B. B is the answer. Now, it says here ulterior other, alternative. Reasons, okay, causes are relevant or important to population growth. Okay, so Wong, she mentioned that people are moving to cities, children are expensive to have or a problem. So people have less children. And Maxwell said consumption levels are the main factor when talking about population growth. It has nothing to do with the population growing, but it's about how much they are consuming. And she did say that, in fact, in some countries, like in rich countries, the population has decreased, okay? Now, C, it's not C because social issues have led to a declining population in most countries. Both of them didn't say that the population is declining in most countries. No. Maxwell said in rich countries. And Wong said that it's only when people move to cities, but not that the population is declining in most countries, okay? All right. I hope you were able to get that one. Okay. All right. So the answer is B. Very interesting. And we still have number 1 and number 2. So, which paragraph provides the most pessimistic or negative view of population growth? So, basically, which researcher or which expert? 1, we had Farsi. 2, we had Gupta. 3, we had Wong and Maxwell. So definitely not 3 or 4, right? Because Wong, she didn't really believe the population is growing. She said it's declining in big cities. And Maxwell said population growth is not a problem at all. So not C or D. So Farsi or Gupta? Gupta, right? Gupta is the one that said already we are seeing such huge negative consequences, particularly to the environment, because of overpopulation. Okay? And we need to stop it before it becomes a catastrophe. Okay? And Farsi just gave us the study. All right? What about number 2? Who views population control as futile or ineffective? No reason to do it. The environmentalist, the demographist, the researcher, the professor. So I hope that you were able to catch that it's not the demographist, right? He was just giving the statistics. That's Farsi. And also, I hope that you caught that Gupta is the researcher. Researcher. Gupta, researcher. So not B or C. So the environmentalist and the professor. The answer here, A, the environmentalist. Right? Maxwell. Wong, okay, professor at Athabasca University. Lucinda Maxwell, an environmental activist. What does she say? I don't, wait, no, over here. It's not enough to control population growth. It's not enough. So it's ineffective unless we change our consumption habits. So we have to change it. Okay. All right. So looks like we got those questions from 1 to 5. Now let's get to the comment, the extra view. We need to read sentence by sentence here. As a Canadian, it may be hard to believe that population growth is an issue. That's true. because Canada is such a big country, second largest in the world, second or third, huge. And our population is only 40 million. I do believe that Canada is a country of the future, and this is why we have such a huge immigration program. Okay? For that reason, I totally six with Wong's position. So something related to Wong's position. I don't believe in population growth, right? For that reason, I totally with Wong's position. Totally do not favor, agree against, oppose, see eye to eye. So Wong said didn't really believe in population growth, so do not favor or agree against or oppose. The answer is see eye to eye. See eye to eye means agree with. Agree with. So I do not believe in or I don't, it's hard to believe in population growth. For that reason, I see eye to eye with Wong's position. I agree because of that reason, because it's such a big country with a low population, Canada. However, if I were living in some of those densely populated countries, yes, that's true. Some countries are very densely populated, so greatly populated. I would be 7. Furthermore, so we're focusing in this part. If I were living in some of those densely populated countries, I would be realizing more than I could, singing a different tune, thinking of less population on Maxwell's side. Well, I definitely, what do you think, everyone? Again, if I were, so here, I see eye to eye with Wong's position because it's hard to believe that in Canada there's population growth. However, if I were living in some of those densely populated countries, I would be not D, right? Because Maxwell and Wong don't believe in, or they have different reasons, or they view overpopulation differently. I would be realizing more than I could sounds strange. This phrase doesn't really sound good here. It kind of means I would see or believe in population growth, but not realizing more than I could. No, maybe I would just be realizing population growth more. So not A. B or C? The answer is B. Another phrase, singing a different tune means I would think differently. It's an expression that means singing a different tune means think differently. So, however, if I were living in some of those densely populated countries, I would be singing a different tune. I would think differently. Again, these expressions that are here in part 4, they are common in these kind of texts, okay? Like the elephants in the room, singing a different tune. And singing a different tune here, it's an expression that, remember, this is a comment. This is not really an academic text, but it's more about expression, okay? All right. Furthermore, based on the overall condition of some of these countries, so some densely populated countries, Gupta's 8 seems a reality. So talking about some densely populated countries, and it says based on the overall condition, we've seen some of these pictures of densely populated countries. Gupta's 8 seems a reality. Gupta's positive view, bleak outlook, natural disasters, sustainable opinion seems a reality. Positive view, bleak outlook, natural disasters, sustainable opinion. Gupta's, so furthermore, based on the overall condition of some of these countries, Gupta's seems a reality. Definitely not positive view, because let's remember, Gupta, we already answered the question, he had the most pessimistic view or negative view according to question number 1. So not positive view and also not sustainable opinion, right? Because Gupta said world population is already above sustainable levels. Unsustainable opinion. He believes that we have population growth and right now we are not able to sustain it. So unsustainable, not sustainable. So bleak outlook, natural disasters. Bleak outlook. Why bleak outlook? Well, bleak outlook means negative view. Bleak, negative. Outlook, just how you think about the future. And according to Gupta, overpopulation is going to cause so much, it's going to become a catastrophe, not natural disasters opinion, okay? All right. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that Farsi's research clearly indicates that the population has been 9 and we must take appropriate measures to prevent its negative consequences. So this is saying about Farsi. So the reality is that Farsi's research indicates that the population has been, and we must take appropriate measures to prevent its negative consequences. So what was Farsi's research saying? Well, Farsi's research was 3 to 7 point to 9/11. Well, Farsi's research has been, the population has been exponentially incrementing, gradually increasing, slowly stabilizing, greatly leveling. So according to Farsi's research, the population has, it's not slowly stabilizing because it's not stabilizing, it's increasing. And also not leveling. Leveling almost means like stabilizing, becoming, reaching a flat point, okay? So exponentially incrementing or gradually increasing? A, right? Now exponentially incrementing means increasing, and exponentially means almost doubling. And we saw here 3 to 7.7, that's more than doubling. And then 7.7 to 9/11, also increasing a lot. Exponentially incrementing means increasing rapidly. Okay? And not gradually, which means a little bit slowly. Okay, so there we go. So the population has been exponentially incrementing, and we must take appropriate or correct measures to prevent its negative consequences. Okay. So what about the last one? In light of this reality, so because of this, in light of this, because of this, I concur with, agree with Maxwell that the real solution should not be population control. Okay. but rather more 10 of resources. So in the end, this opinion agrees with Wong, but also sees Gupta's opinion, then looks at Farsi's, what Farsi was saying, and says the population is increasing. So I agree with Maxwell that it's not really about population control, but instead, or rather, more 10 of resources. Sustainable consumption, proportional distribution, equal control, manageable research of resources. So, what was Maxwell's opinion about resources? The real solution should not be population control, but rather more 10 of resources. Now, manageable research, she didn't talk about research. So, not D. Okay? Also, not really C. Equal control. She didn't really talk about controlling resources. Not really control. She talked about something important. And while it could be A, the answer is B. Why? That's what we need to understand. Now, she did mention something about consuming. She did talk about the rich countries consume the most per capita. Okay, she did say that. Extra consumption in rich countries. So they need to sustain their consumption. Okay. But she also talked in the end, very important, consumption and inequality are the real elephants in the room. This means that poor countries or developing countries, they don't have enough resources to consume. So, in Maxwell's view, the rich countries do need to sustain their consumption, but we also need to provide more or distribute more resources. Proportional here means equal. Equal. So equal distribution of resources. So we need to provide enough resources for all the population, not control the population, or not just enough, she said. Well, the key is that in rich countries, we do have population control, but we are consuming too much. So we need to provide some of those resources to countries that have more population. Okay, that's what it means by proportional distribution, equal distribution. All right, everyone. Very interesting. This issue of population control or population growth and how to manage it has been an issue for some time, especially in the 21st century. Okay. Now, I hope you were able to do well. And everyone, let's review. Okay. I hope we were able to explain everything correctly here. Okay. Do have some good reviews. Okay. Review of the answers. All right. And everyone, I hope that this analysis, we did it together. We did it together. I hope you were following along with me, also following along with the vocabulary. Some of this, the vocabulary that I've pointed out today, can be useful for many other part fours, okay? So, everyone, please review the vocabulary. I'll try to leave a link for the vocabulary review okay? Or review the video again and you can look at those words, which will be very useful. Okay, now also very beneficial for you will be, yes, the review or version 2 of this sample. Many times the CELPIP exam has 2 or 3 versions. Here we have version 2 of this exam sample. So everyone, we have to do it in the time allowed. Okay, read it again. Different questions, okay? Different questions. I hope you'll be able to do good in this one. And I will leave a link in the description to this sample, okay? And of course, everyone, if you need 7, 8, 9s, CELPIP Library has well over 60 examples, okay? 60 examples of part 4 with version 2s. In many cases, some of them have version 2s. And this will be very beneficial if you need to practice more and more. So also in that link at the bottom, okay, at the bottom, you'll find a link to purchase a library pass. And because you've watched this whole video, you can get a 3-month subscription. That's a lot to practice with discount code CELPIP79 for only $10.99, everyone. Our CELPIP library again includes all current and past CELPIP exams and CELPIP material. So, if you want to purchase that library pass and get ahead with your practice, then you can find that link there, okay? Let's remember, everyone, practice makes perfect.